Thrashin. Corey Weber is an amateur skateboarder from out of town staying in Los Angeles with friends in hopes of competing and winning in a downhill competition for which he has been training during his stay in LA. He falls for a beautiful blonde named Chrissy, who just happens to be the younger sister of the bad guy, this tough punk rock skater gang guy from Dogtown. Chrissy's not like Dagger. She comes from a more stable family in Indiana. You know, she's staying with her punk rock brother in Venice. Corey is Josh Brolin, young Josh Brolin, like right after Goonies. And then the bad guy is Robert Rustler, a young Robert Rustler before he got all crazy. Super awesome looking guy. This movie was the coolest movie that came out in the 80s. For a young person that liked skateboarding, this was the coolest thing ever. It was like about skateboarding. It had skateboarders in it. But then you watch it later and you're like, wait a minute, this is just a stupid love story. Oh my god, it's a dumb love story. Back then, like, I ignored all the love story. But trying to watch it now, it's like, this movie is 97.6% love story. Like, there's 2.4% skateboarding story. So, you know that going in. Corey and his crew, the ramp locals, often have confrontations throughout the film because of Corey's disobedience to Hook when asked not to call his sister again. Corey won't listen because it's Romeo and Juliet on skateboards and barely escapes getting jumped by all the bad guys, but they're not bad guys. They're just punk rock kids on skateboards that aren't having his shit. And there's a bunch of punk rock music in it, which is great. It's got Vice Squad, Devo, Susie and the Banshees. Oh, that's not the soundtrack. Those are the t-shirts that you can see in the movie. Corey and Hook later meet up that night after an earlier confrontation at the Dagger House. The rivals joust in the Bronson Canyon Ditch, which is fucking hilarious because Bronson Canyon Ditch, you couldn't joust in that shit. Like, it's fucking not easy to skate. It's like super long and super not steep enough to be, you know, like you have to fucking, I don't know. It's not, you got to be going down that hill and then up it, like. But I didn't know that they filmed that shit in Bronson Canyon Ditch. I've been to Bronson Canyon Ditch a bunch of times. My homeboy skated Bronson Canyon Ditch. Look at him right here, skating the fuck out of this dinosaur that his homeboy painted on the ditch. Do not leave this guy alone with your girlfriend. He will fuck your girlfriend. He did not fuck my girlfriend. I'm just telling you. He will. Just so you know. Until Corey is injured and the police arrive. Corey's arm is broken and he's convinced that he can't compete until he places the blame on Chrissy. How very not cool at all. Who wasn't there to assist him in his time of need. She left with the daggers as the police were arriving, but in protest reminds him that she had begged him not to engage in the duel in the first place. Corey runs outside to like make up with her, but then she doesn't hear him and she's upset, and then she goes back to the Dagger's house and she says she's going back to Indiana, and then she goes to the bus station and then goes to pack, and then Corey skates over to the Dagger's house. Hook's girlfriend tells him that she already left and she doesn't have a phone number, and Chrissy was crying inconsolably, but they're all lies. And Chrissy is still upstairs packing. Later that night, Chrissy and her brother have a heart-to-heart about his protectiveness of her, and as he drives her to the bus station, where she gets on the bus to Indiana. Meanwhile, Corey mopes around. He starts to miss Chrissy and begins to practice downhill skateboarding. With a broke, he has to be very cautious and proves to not be able to perform well. Chrissy, having second thoughts, exits her bus on the highway, hitches back to LA, just in time to see Corey and Hook battle it out in the last turn of the downhill race. Hook flies over the side of the road and Corey speeds to the finish line at 63 miles per hour off a ramp and into a crowd of fans who cheer him on in victory. I can't believe I love this movie in the 80s. Oh my god, it's terrible. He's awarded a professional contract with Smash Skates and enough money to rebuild the destroyed ramp burnt down by the Daggers. Hook tells Corey that he respects his skill and approves of Corey's relationship with Chrissy. Seeing Corey as worthy and respectful, and apparently having taken his talk with Chrissy to heart, in respecting Corey, Hook for the first time is looked at as respectable as well. Bitch, come on. Fuck you. Fuck you for saying that. Whoever wrote that plot, he was always respectable. Right? Just because he wasn't a fucking preppy ass poser, right? Doesn't mean that he wasn't fucking respectable. Because he wasn't Hollister, he's not fucking respectable. Suck a dick. But because he's like, oh, that's so dumb. That's dumb. Fuck this guy, whoever wrote this, like, plot summary. You're dumb. I really loved this movie in the 80s because it was about skateboarding. Watching it later in life, you realize that it is straight up Romeo and Juliet on skateboards with the joust situation that is really dumb. I mean, it was in 720, the skateboard game. So I'm pretty sure they just took it from the game. In the game, you get on a vert ramp and then you have like pugil sticks and you're like smacking, or it's like either pugil stick or it's like on like a thing. One of those is in the movie and the other one's in the video game. You just like skate and then like knock the dude off and then you win in the video game. And the same thing happens in the movie. As far as 80s skateboard movies, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 because it's just a love story, man. It's a love story. It's fucking Romeo and Juliet on skateboards. Except for, instead of being the outcast, he's like the preppy Hollister dude who's apparently more respectable than the punk rock kid from Venice who lives in his own house, right? Doesn't live at mommy's house. He's not staying at his friend's house. He's got his own house with his friends. So how's that more respectable, bro? What country you live in? So, young Josh Brolin, he's better in Goonies. I love him in Goonies. He's great in Goonies. This is the second movie I ever saw him in. I still like him. You know, I loved this movie when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I loved this movie so much that I went across the street to Errol's and I said, yo, I want to buy this movie. How much to buy this movie? And this is long before you could like buy movies. You had to like go rent it, and then that was it. You could rent it. You couldn't buy movies. And they were like, oh, well, we could order you one and it's $80 for a VHS tape. $80 for a VHS tape. What? I was like, you know, a little kid. The most money my dad ever gave me was like 10, 20 bucks, maybe 25 for like, if I like bugged the fuck out of him for like a soccer uniform or some shit once. So yeah, no, 80 bucks for like a 10-year-old? No, that was not happening at all. I never got to own it. I did get my friend to get it later, and I was like, oh my god, it's gonna be so great. Oh, it's a fucking love story. I fucking hate love stories. Unless it's like just a love story, right? If I'm going in it expecting to see a love story, then alright. But you go into it expecting a skateboard action film, and it's really just Romeo and Juliet on skateboards. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but what are you gonna do? But it's still fun. I mean, it's still fun because it's from the 80s, right? And it's not rapey at all. Apparently all 80s comedies were rapey as F. So it's one of those rare 80s movies that isn't so wrong by today's standards. You know, some 80s movies are just so very wrong. Check it out if you like to see a young Josh Brolin being a skateboarder. I wonder if he still skates. I wonder if he ever was like, yeah, this is fun, and like still skates. That would be fucking cool. You know what I mean? Like Josh Brolin was like hanging out with Tony Hawk, like actually like skating. That would be cool. That would be really cool. Josh Brolin, I hope you skate.